Welcome, you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my Thursday update about Friday. Going into this Friday, going into the Friday expiration, going into December 12th, we're going to be putting out those daily expected moves for all the stocks that we do cover on the right side of your screen to Patreon. But for today, we're going to be giving out on YouTube the daily expected moves for the SPY and the Qs completely for free, right? I try to get on here every night, even if it's a short 5-minute video, just to give you these little updates. But I think it's important for us to look at what's going on in those shorter time frames, click into the 2-hour chart and look at what is very probable for the overall bulls, because they seem to be taking back that control. We'll look for some things on the bear side as well. So let's get into some bull bear cases, because yes, we might have trapped the bulls today, or the bears today, but we might be doing a bigger trap for the bulls going into 2026. Let's get into it. So starting off with the 2-hour chart, looking into the bull side first. I am going to go into some things at the end of this video, kind of talking about what kind of traps could be set up at the end of the year up in these type of areas, looking at those timings and things like that. But as the market did not prove to give us this pullback down to here, we will still be open to that. But as we did just see a good confirmation from the MACD, you see those green bars on the histogram, good confirmation from the RSI. Not the best divergence there, but we'll get into that when we get to the bear case. It looks like we may have just trapped the bears. We may have been finished trapping those bears down here, and we're just going to see that squeeze to the upside. Remember that these events like the Fed can be used as liquidity grabs, fake outs to overall cause squeezes or big dumps. And it looks like as of right now, 24 hours after that announcement, we do see the confirmation to the upside. This would say that we need to, at least for tomorrow, maybe even by the end of the day or by the end of the week, since that is tomorrow, 694.10 to the upside for the daily expected move. I would still pay attention to that 697. That means this area right here, if you have very short time to expiration, this would be a good decision-making area for this week. If you're a month out on those and you see the 2-hour confirm up and see some moves like this, you're probably a little bit, for the week, you'd say this is a decision-making area. To the downside, a daily expected move to watch for is 684.24. Right now, we're going over the bull case, and the bull case looks like 3 for 3, right? Good confirmation, good confirmation, good confirmation. And it looks like what? We're actually going to break out and see some good stuff. So if we're going to head to the upside, that means that we could see that continuation. So bulls, the charts are with you. So the only thing that bulls would have to consider is, hey, what are the levels I'm paying attention to? And that's why you probably subscribe to this channel to get weekly, daily expected moves. And we will be giving out the weekly expected moves over the weekend. So make sure that you tune in for that video so you get that information, these updated purple lines. The bear side is something that every bull should be aware of, though. Even though you do have this confirmation, you overall pulled back with a squeezing and then with time to go to the upside. Well, these things can fail. So as we look into, say, the 2-hour chart, we do see the divergence formed, not confirmed, but you just want to be watching this. When you're first getting bullish, you just want to be like, the first time you add that position on there, you want to make sure that this doesn't roll pretty quickly, because if it does, you look how close it is to the center line. You do have forms of divergence there, formed, not confirmed bears, remember that, and you do have the divergence here on the RSI at the same time. Now, why would you want to be aware of this? Well, because if you are going to make a double top, then this would be the type of signal that needs to confirm, right? We said in this area, we would need to see what? Bears, you would need to see a lower high or a potential divergence. And what do you have right now? You have potential divergence that hasn't confirmed. So this means ready to react. Trading like water is a perfectly fine thing, but do not kid yourself, bears. This is a bullish moment for the time being. As you go into the 30-minute chart, you don't see much. So bears, as you look at this, you would need a complete disruption here. If you are bullish and you want to see if you can get into that, I would be looking for the next 30-minute pullback or 2-hour pullback. That looks like the next big opportunity. So the 30-minute chart as of right now is suggesting a continuation to 694.10 is very probable. If you are going to pull back, as you are kind of close to the center line, but kind of not, you would still lean towards pullback as you have not lost the last low again. And 684.24 is what you would watch for a pullback for the SPY. Getting into the Qs on the 30-minute chart, it looks like this is a little bit of a different story, right? We went sideways, 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 big dip down, but hey, is that really going to matter as the 30-minute is going positive? We'll have to see what happens with this. And like I said, bigger amount of implied volatility going into tomorrow. So as this is positive, you would look for us to test the high, go make a new one. Where is that new one going to be? 632.91 is what is suggested we could get to by the end of the day tomorrow. 618.25 would be a level to watch for if we need to retest those lows. If we need to retest those lows, there's always a chance to see some kind of weird flush before expiration, before OPEX, just to go test that 5-day moving average. We'll see what happens with that. The 2-hour chart, we mainly did the bullish and bearish scenarios over on the SPY. For the Qs, you're going to be paying attention to similar things, but you don't necessarily have the divergences on the MACD and RSI. And when I say on the MACD and RSI, I like to see it, right? I don't like rejection divergences that much as they produce. I just feel like, in my trading history, they don't turn out as good as when you see them at the same time and you're nice and patient for those opportunities. You could see that soon, though. We could see some kind of pop to the upside, and maybe that's able to roll on Monday. We'll have to find out, right? We want to watch for those kinds of things, and that's why we're going to pay attention to volatility in a moment. But as the SPY has just confirmed, I believe even the DIA and the IWM are booming to the upside, violating divergences at this point. You wouldn't necessarily lean in the bullish, or I'm sorry, in the bearish camp, right? You would more so say, hey, the SPY and the Qs are maybe going to see that rotation into them after the IWM and DIA are done in the short term. So if the 2-hour is still able to catch up here, if the 2-hour is able to confirm, you already got that from some price action, but that's at the end of the day. So we would like to see a good green 2-hour bar right here. If you get that good green 2-hour bar like that, it would suggest that we can tag the not this week normally, not necessarily, but you actually would look for the calculation of next week's weekly expected move, and bulls, making it simple, that would be a simple swing trade to the weekly expected move. I do assume that since we're in this same area, we will see a weekly expected move around 645 would make a lot of sense. So I'll put those numbers out over the weekend. Make sure you are subscribed. We put them out every single weekend. But the simplest way to look at this is the 2-hour is in positive territory. The price action here is not below the 5-day moving average. This is why we were suggesting a crash is a very low probability. You might even saw a tweet where I even just put out there. Sometimes I tweet like once a week and I just say something that's so bland, but all I said was, hey, everyone's talking about a crash. It's very low probability we crash here. It's very high probability that we get a 2-hour pullback that goes to the upside. And now we've pulled back. We're heading to that upside. We'll see what happens from here. Watching out for divergences and anything at this level is important. But we're going to talk about what we could do by the end of the month at the end of this video. First, we need to get through some volatility. So first of all, good thing to look at if you're wondering if the daily chart is curling up right now. It is not. It is rejecting. So that tells us what? Well, that tells us that my inclination of us heading down to 1212 to potentially set up a weekly divergence, maybe we'll mention this weekend a little bit, to make a weekly divergence. Once this is actually set, we'll want to pay attention. Once we actually see some kind of divergence here on your MACD, it most likely will not be on the RSI at the same time. That tells us that it is more likely to be some kind of volatile moment, but not a crash. They're not at the same time like these other times where we've seen kind of some bigger sell-offs, right? If we go all the way back to 2021, before we actually started to get the big the inflation problems going on for that entire year going into 2022, we saw a dramatic divergence on the MACD and RSI at the same time at that level of 1504 that I really, really like. So I just wanted to mention that on the bigger scale of things towards 2026, guys, this is what I'm paying attention to for risk. The daily chart, though, everyone wondering, is that going to curl up by the center line, by the center line? I go, well, if it curls up by the center line, it's still likely to be a lower high, but you don't necessarily want to play around with that. And it looks like the market makers and big money doesn't want to play around with that either. The 2-hour chart is still within range of seeing some sort of positive move, but as you keep breaking down, you do feel like that could just keep rolling, right? So most likely what is going on here is we are breaking down again. We are most likely going to have to see some kind of divergence form in this area before we are able to see this daily chart get some sort of reaction. That is very probable at this point. As we go into the 30-minute chart, we see no real reversals here besides a divergence on the RSI that can cause a pullback in some fashion. I'm not saying this can't be some kind of trap to the upside right now. I'm actually saying that if I was paying attention to the SPY, I would be looking at the 2-hour chart and going, wow, this looks like a bullish break. This looks like we accumulated a lot of liquidity, and then we just overall pulled back sideways, pulled back with time to cross up into positive territory to get to where? Most likely 700. And by going to 700 or something like 698, 700, if we break through 700, we are very likely to see some kind of pullback that can extend to the upside one more time, maybe to get to that monthly expected move of 707. So this is what is actually being shown to you, and this would build up some time for us to make the next daily divergence point. We will pay attention if these things are violated, but what I'm looking for here is, do we hold this divergence point? Do we go up here? And do we see that start to reject at some point as we get to those higher levels? Which means that by the end of the year, if you're wondering what I think's happening here, I think we are setting some kind of big trap. So even though today the bears might be trapped here, I believe that the bulls will be trapped towards the end of the year, or maybe into the second week of January. So that's what I'm watching for. Hey, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I have had some family have to go to the hospital, so we've had a little bit of a crazy time here. So I'm making sure to put aside some time for you guys, and there's nothing really we can do about it at this point. So I wanted to just say thank you guys for being awesome members of this community. Thank you guys to my Patreon members and everyone who supports my family out there. It's fantastic, and we appreciate it beyond comprehension. We do feel like we are absolutely blessed, and I am blessed to be able to put this information that has helped me so much out to you guys. And I hope, and I know that it is the case, that I am helping you and your family. And I hope that this money goes towards something good, and maybe you're able to get your family member something nice for Christmas. Hey, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.